It's the 1970s. Star Wars has just come out. Disco is cool. And scientists are saying that we might all freeze to death due to global cooling. That's right. Before the current
This guy's saying that global cooling in the 70s was just a half-baked idea by a few fringe scientists. Like, no one ever really believed to be global cooling. He acknowledges that global cooling was something that was in the media, was in the newspapers, everyone was talking about it, but in the universities, they didn't support it at all. He talks about the number of university papers that were done at the time.
There was not a single year in the 1960s, 70s, or any decade since in which global cooling was the prevailing theory in the scientific community. So why did scientists change their mind and flip from global cooling to global warming? Well, they didn't. Global warming has always been the consensus in the scientific community when you measure the peer-reviewed publications.
Well, I did measure them, and it turns out to be a very small measure. I kept looking for an in thousands footnote at the bottom of the graph. For example, like in the year 1979, I'm thinking it should be 42,000 papers done, or even 420 papers done on global warming. But in fact, it looks like 42 or 43 in 1979, maybe 38, 37 in 1978. In fact, though, it gets even worse. I found this graph on Wikipedia, the same graph as the one your man is showing, except it says cumulative. So it's not even just 42 papers, it's like 4 or 5 papers done in 1979. And it's like that for all the other years, single digits all the way. 1978, it's like 3 papers. 1977, 4 papers, maybe 3 the year before. Goes on and on and on. So it's like less than 3, so say 43 papers are done over the whole 15-year period. To divide up by 15, less than 3 papers a year you're looking at an average. So less than 3 papers a year out of all the universities in all the world, 2 or 3 papers a year throughout the 70s were done on global warming, which is nothing. How can you say with a straight face that the whole of the climate science community was laughing at the idea of global cooling when like you have just 2 or 3 university papers a year to back you up? And what is a university paper anyway? I mean, it's a study done by a student. Study done by like a 23-year-old student. Looking back at myself as a 23-year-old, I wouldn't believe a word I said. Peer reviewed. So my paper, I'm a student and I got my paper checked over by other students. Great. Sorry for boring you if you know about this already, but the Wayback Machine is a website where you can go back and see an archive of billions of web pages. It saves them all at different stages at different times, and it's just useful to go back and see how things change over time. So I'm going into the Wikipedia page of today. Global cooling. Global cooling was a conjecture, especially during the 1970s, of imminent cooling of the Earth, culminating in a period of extensive glaciation due to the blah 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 blah, goes on and on. So it was like just a half-assed idea that people came up with at the time. In 2004 though, the same article is much more accommodating of the idea of global cooling. If anything, they're taking global cooling in the 70s being something that may even still happen. The tone is just very far away from that of 2024, whereas like just these mad crazy guys coming up with this fringe idea. So it's migrated from global cooling being a ridiculous idea in 2024 to something in 2004 that could still possibly happen. So you can imagine what the article, if Wikipedia was around the 70s, you can imagine what the article would have been saying. It would have been like, basically, we're all going to freeze to death.